Module 4, Lesson 31, Problems in Mathematical Terms. Our learning targets: I can analyze an equation in two variables to choose independent and dependent variables. I can determine whether or not the equation is solved for the second variable in terms of the first variable and vice versa. And I can create a table to solve a problem. So the first thing that you need to know is that the dependent variable is affected by changes in the independent variable. So when we look at these problems, think about what is going to be affected. If it's going to be affected, then it's the dependent variable. So you have the independent variable and then the dependent variable. Dependent variable is affected by changes in the independent variable. So if the independent variable goes from 1 to 2, then the dependent variable is going to change because the independent variable changed. So our first example, Marcus reads for 30 minutes each night. He wants to determine the total number of minutes he will read over the course of a month. He wrote the equation T is equal to 30D. That's important to know because we're going to be using that to represent the total amount of time that he has spent reading, where T represents the total number of minutes read and D represents the number of days that he read during the month. Determine which variable is independent and which is dependent. Then create a table to show how many minutes he has read in the first 7 days. So our independent variable is going to be number of days and then our dependent variable is total minutes. And that's our dependent variable because the total minutes that he has read is going to depend on how many days he read. So now that we know our independent variable and our dependent variable, we can make our table. And in a table, in the first column, you're going to have the independent variable, and in the second column, you will have the dependent variable. So I have drawn our table. So in the first column, I had our independent variable, which was number of days, and in our second column, I have our dependent variable, which is total. So we're going to just make this pretty simple, and I'm going to say that he read for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And our equation is T equals 30D. So D stood for number of days, so we can take 1 and we can plug it in. So we'll have 30 times 1, which is 30, and then we'll have 30 times 2, which is 60, 30 times 3, which is 90, 30 times 4, which is 120, and then 30 times 5, which is 150. And we have completed our table. However, our question was to show how many minutes he has read in the first 7 days. And obviously I ran out of room, which is why I only went to 5, but we can easily figure out how many minutes he read in 7 days because we know our equation. So we can take our equation, T is equal to 30, D, we can plug in 7, so T is equal to 30 times 7, so T is equal to 210. So he read 210 minutes in the first 7 days. Our next example, Kira designs websites. She creates 3 different websites each week. Kira wants to create an equation that will give her the total number of websites she can design given the number of weeks she works. Determine the independent and dependent variables. Create a table to show the number of websites she can design over the first 5 weeks. Finally, write an equation to represent the number of websites she can design when given any number of weeks. So I've drawn our table, and we have number of weeks in the first column and number of websites in the second column. And number of weeks is our independent variable because our dependent variable has to be number of websites. And it's the dependent variable because the amount of websites she can make depends on how many weeks she worked. We also know that she can create 3 different websites in a week. So I'm going to use the variable D for website designs, and then we'll use W for weeks, and she can make 3 different websites each week. So we're going to have 3 times W, and that is our equation. So now we can start filling in our chart, and under number of weeks, I'm just going to count to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we can take our equation and we can plug in our numbers. So we'll have D is equal to 3 times 1, which is 3. And then we'll have 2 times 3, which is 6. And 3 times 3, which is 9. And 3 times 4, which is 12. And 3 times 5, which is 15. So in 5 weeks, she can design 15 websites. Our next example. Priya streams movies through a company that charges her a $5 monthly fee plus $1.50 per movie. So this is saying that every month she gets charged $5 whether she watches a movie or not, and every time she watches a movie, it's an extra $1.50. So we need to determine the independent and dependent variables and write an equation to model this situation, and create a table to show the total cost per month given that she might stream between 4 and 10 movies in a month. So I have drawn our table. In the first column for independent variable, we have the number of movies, and in the second column for dependent, we have the total. And that is the dependent because the total amount of money that she's going to spend is going to be determined by how many movies she streams. And we need to make a table for between 4 and 10 movies. So we're going to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And now we have to write an equation. So I'm going to use C for cost. So our cost is going to be equal to $1.50 per movie. So $1.50 M plus M, which is 5. So now that we have our equation, we can fill in the rest of our table by plugging in our numbers. So we're going to have C is equal to 1.5 times 4 plus 5, which is 11. And we're going to continue with this pattern for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So for 5, it's going to be $12.50. For 6, 14, 7, 15, 50, 9, 8, 17, 9, 18, 50, and 10 is 20. For our next 4, I'm going to read to you the problem, and then I want you to see if you can fill in the table with the correct information. So I'm going to read each problem. We'll start with the first problem, and then I want you to pause the video so you can practice, and then you can continue playing the video to check your answer. So the first one is, Sarah is purchasing pencils to share. Each package has 12 pencils. The equation n equals 12p, where n is the total number of pencils and p is the number of packages, can be used to determine the total number of pencils Sarah purchased. Determine which variable is dependent and which is independent. Then make a table showing the number of pencils purchased for 3 to 7 packages. So pause the video now, fill in a chart, and then you can check your answer. Here are the correct answers. So for 3 packages, the total is 36, 4 and 48, 5 and 60, 6 and 72, 7 and 84. Our next one. Charlotte reads 4 books each week. Let B be the number of books she reads each week. And let W be the number of weeks that she reads. Determine which variable is dependent and which is independent. Then write an equation to model the situation and make a table that shows the number of books read in under 6 weeks. Solve this problem. Here are the answers. 1 and 4, 2 and 8, 3 and 12, 4, and 16, 5, and 20. A miniature golf course has a special group rate. You can pay $20 plus $3 per person when you have a group of 5 or more friends. Let F be the number of friends and C be the total cost. Determine which variable is independent and which is dependent and write an equation that models the situation. Then make a table to show the cost for 5 to 12 friends. Solve the problem. The answers: 5 and 35, 6 and 38, 7 and 41, 8 and 44, 9 and 47, 10 and 50, 11 and 53, 12 and 56. And our last one. Carlos is shopping for school supplies. He bought a pencil box for $3, and he also needs to buy notebooks. Each notebook is $2. Let T represent the total cost of the supplies, and N be the number of notebooks Carlos buys. Determine which variable is independent and which is dependent, and write an equation that models the situation. Then make a table to show the cost for 1 to 5 notebooks. Solve the problem. And the answers: 1 and 5, 2 and 7, 3 and 9, 4 and 11, 5 and 13. And that's it. So now you can go complete the problem set.